Hangout. Hold on a second here. Where is that? Oh my God, where the hell is it?
Midnight feeds still glowing. Boys, you listening? We're just pretending. Petitions rising in the frozen west. Cold fire under Alberta's chest. Maps don't move, but the people do. Power hums when the silence breaks through. Minneapolis burning around the edges. Not the players, just the ones near the ledges. Warnings whisper through polished teeth. Order talks when chaos breathes. Screens light up, the story bends. Truth wears makeup, depends who's friend. Welcome to the hangout, baby, stay awake. Every headline's wearing lipstick and fake. I purr the news like the slow draw sin. Lean in close, let the signal sink in. Red pill nation after dawn. I don't scream, I leave a mark. A preacher paused by a cameraman's grin. Holy ground with a needle pin. Charges filed, the choir stared. Faith interrupted, nobody spared. Stereotypes switching outfits again. Watch conviction fold into trend. Say it's growth, say it's break. Funny how fast belief behaves. I don't judge, I just watch it fall. Patterns repeat like a late night call. Welcome to the hangout, sugar, take a seat. Truth sounds better when it's whispered sweet. I undress headlines, slow and clean. Tell you what they mean between the screens. Red pill nation, velvet tongue. I don't fight, I let it be shown. A game character wakes up wrong. Accidentally says what you're not supposed to say. Icons aren't chosen. They slip. Greenland echoes through European halls. Lots of noise, no footsteps at all. Welcome to the hangout, boys, behave. I don't sell noise, I'll sell the wave. Watch the world through a smoky lens. No heroes here, just how it ends. Red pill nation, lights down low. I don't tell you what to think, I'll let you know. Same time next episode. Don't forget who read it to you.
Hi, this is Naroki5. I am going to be doing this until I die or I find something better to do. So please help me achieve this personal and, I think, noble objective by contributing to my Patreon or Subscribe Star. Link is down below. Every little bit helps. Thank you very much.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to Red Pill Nation Hangout number 490. I have to go and do some. I have to potentially step away for a moment here at a moment for a moment here at some point. Actually, a couple times during the show, because I'm doing my laundry whilst doing the show. Welcome to the Red Pill Nation Hangout. V might be joining. I'm not sure yet. I did send them all the link. I apologize for the lateness and potentially even the shortness of this particular show, as I have to be at work in a little under 5 hours. I'm currently doing laundry, among other things. So, yeah, this might be I may have to step away for a few minutes here to do some rearranging here for about 5 or 10 minutes to be a bit of a break for you if you need to go to the bathroom or something like that. Site news, yeah, okay. I have decided that I'm going to incorporate some transition music between each of my segments. That way, if I need to start breaking them down or keeping track of where and when, I know exactly where and when to do it, both visually and audioly. I am also, yeah, we're very, very close to episode 500. Going to be planning something special for that one because you don't get the 500 episodes of anything for a while here. And of course, I also have to go get some water here at some point. So, anyway, for those of you who don't know, in terms of content sites, BitChute, Rumble, Odyssey, MGTOW TV, strangely enough, YouTube, Brighteon, Twitch, and Kick. I am not really sure why I even bother with Twitch. I'm still stuck at 2 followers there. Although I am kind of doing okay on Kick. I do get some regular subscribers on Kick. I'm not holding my breath, though. I want to thank the 2 whole people who are listening right now. They're probably actually 4 whole listeners right now. I suspect that some of you are probably just bots, but welcome on board to the Red Pill Nation Hangout number 490. So, what are the topics for Red Pill Nation 490? Topic number 1, SPLC indicted on multiple charges. Topic number 2, another assassination attempt on Trump made. That one probably might go on for a while, but yeah, again, it's just me, so I'm gonna be keeping this show might go 2 hours, give or take. Topic number 3, MSM makes flagrant attempt to get YouTube to get YouTube to shut down pro-separatist content on YouTube. Yeah, that's really recently. Topic number 4, Katy Perry accused of sexual assault by actress Ruby Rose. Topic number 5, claims of mass grave at Kamloops Residential School quietly dropped. Yeah, this one was probably in the works for a while. And topic number 6, Starbucks moving out of its headquarters in Nashville, moving its headquarters to Nashville. Yeah, I'm not really actually in the mood to be getting into long commentary tonight, just probably because I've got a lot of stuff I got to do. So, without any further ado, I am just going to get into hop right into the subject matter here, and we are going to start out with the SPLC. Yeah, this is very, very interesting. I got 3 videos to post up here for it. This, I think, should be some very, very, very interesting content for you to listen to. So, yeah, here we go. SPLC, 3 videos here. Total combined segment is about 11 or 12 minutes. So here we go.
For decades, the Southern Poverty Law Center has been one of the most prominent civil rights organizations in the United States. It is known for tracking hate groups, winning major civil rights lawsuits, and generating plenty of controversy along the way. On Wednesday, it became something else, a federal defendant. The Justice Department announced that the SPLC, along with several of its leaders, has been indicted on charges of wire fraud and conspiracy to commit money laundering. Federal prosecutors allege that senior figures inside the organizations misused funds. That is a serious accusation for any nonprofit. It is especially serious for one that has raised hundreds of millions of dollars by presenting itself as a watchdog for civil rights abuses. The SPLC has been a polarizing institution for years. Civil rights advocates have praised its work. Conservatives have often criticized its hate group designations, arguing that some of them are politically motivated. Those designations have included some Christian organizations and mainstream right-leaning groups. But the indictment does not appear to focus on that controversy. Instead, the charges center on alleged financial misconduct. Prosecutors are pointing to wire fraud and money laundering, both of which carry serious criminal penalties. The organization has not yet responded in detail to the charges. The indictment also lands in a larger political context. The Trump administration has been pursuing legal action against several nonprofits and civil society groups it views as political opponents. That means the SPLC is likely to argue selective prosecution as part of its defense. The broader debate is already taking shape. Supporters of the charges will say this is about financial accountability, but critics will argue it is part of a pressure campaign against liberal institutions. What is not in dispute is the significance of the moment. One of the most well-funded civil rights nonprofits in American history is now facing federal criminal charges.
Okay, next one is the actual press conference. It's about 5 minutes and 24 seconds. So, yeah, let's go.
In the Middle District of Alabama, a grand jury returned an 11-count indictment charging the Southern Poverty Law Center with 6 counts of wire fraud, 4 counts of bank fraud, and 1 count of conspiracy to commit money laundering. According to the charges in the indictment, the SPLC is a nonprofit entity that purports to fight white supremacy and racial hatred by reporting on extremist groups and conducting research to inform law enforcement groups with the goal of dismantling these groups. As the indictment describes, the SPLC was not dismantling these groups. It was instead manufacturing the extremism it purports to oppose by paying sources to stoke racial hatred. The indictment describes this conduct in detail, but one troubling example is that the SPLC was paying a member of the leadership group that planned the Unite the Right protest in Charlottesville, Virginia in 2017 that resulted in the death of 1 person and injured dozens more. This particular person being paid by the SPLC allegedly received approximately $270,000 over the course of 8 years. In total, according to the indictment, between 2014 and 2023, SPLC paid at least $3 million to 8 individuals at least. These individuals were affiliated with the Ku Klux Klan, United Klans of America, National Socialist Movement, Aryan Nations Affiliated Sadistic Souls Motorcycle Club, the Nationalist Socialist Party of America, Nazis, and the American Front. Now, as the indictment lays out, after SPLC paid members of these extremist groups, it created work product that reported on these activities that the members participated in or contributed to. And to that end, it was doing the exact opposite of what it's told its donors it was doing.
In a massive, sweeping indictment, has been charged with allegations of fraud and using the banking system to perpetrate that fraud. I just want to talk about a couple of brief things here. The Southern Poverty Law Center themselves advertise to raise money to dismantle violent extremist groups for a period of at least a decade. They use their donor network to raise money to purportedly dismantle violent extremist groups. However, the SPLC, the Southern Poverty Law Center, used the money they raised from their donor network to actually pay the leadership of these very groups. I just want to say that again. They used the fraudulently raised money by lying to their donor network thousands of Americans to go ahead and actually pay the leadership of these supposed violent extremist groups. The groups, as the general laid out, include the Ku Klux Klan, the United Klans of America, Unite to Right, National Alliance, the National Socialist Movement, the Aryan Nation Motorcycle Club, and the National Socialist Party of America, and also the American Front. In at least one of these matters, our investigation revealed that funds were used to facilitate the commission of further state and federal offenses, totaling over $3 million. Furthermore, our investigation revealed that the Southern Poverty Law Center, on top of perpetuating this widespread, decade-long, multi-million-dollar fraud, conducted more criminal activity. They attempted to hide their criminal activity from our financial banking network. They set up shell companies and entities around America so that the financial institutions that we rely on as everyday Americans were deceived in believing that money was not coming from the Southern Poverty Law Center in the perpetration of this scheme and fraud, but rather fictitious entities they stood up to perpetuate this ongoing fraud. This is a serious and egregious violation of a group that purported to dismantle violent extremist groups, but in turn actually only fueled the hatred. This is an important case brought by President Trump's administration. We're thankful to the president for his leadership and funding of not just the FBI and DOJ, but his commitment to go out there and wipe out fraud and conspiracy and waste and abuse wherever it occurs, including the Southern Poverty Law Center. Even though this money was made to appear to be coming from legitimate people and legitimate entities, we at the FBI, with our great partners at the Department of Justice and in the state of Alabama, were able to comb through a decade worth of material, a scheme that took a decade to build, so that we were able to follow the money, because money never lies, and they got caught. As the Attorney General said, these charges are varying, they are widespread and wide-ranging, and this investigation is very much ongoing. Today, we're here to announce the charges of the Southern Poverty Law Center, and this investigation and the individuals who are responsible will be brought to justice. Thank you, General.
And we got one more. I actually have a WordPress, which I'm probably going to have to put a link up to, that actually has which has a video from John Stossel, who did a report on the SPLC way back, probably about 9 or 10 years ago. But yeah, here's another video by John Stossel that lasts about 5 minutes.
There are dangerous hate groups in America. Who will warn us about them? The media tell us.
The Southern Poverty Law Center. The Southern Poverty Law Center.
The Southern Poverty Law Center, based in that building in Alabama, calls itself the premier group monitoring hate groups and other extremists. Looking at their map of hate groups, you'd think hate groups were everywhere. I once believed what the center said. Well-meaning people still do. Apple gave them $1 million. But what donors don't know is that today the center smears good people.
The presence of radical Islam.
This Somalian woman speaks out against radical Islam. For that, the center put her on its list.
Join the fight against hate and bigotry.
Visit SPLCenter.org.
I do think that we have a problem with hate in this country.
We put about 10 of these major hate groups out of business.
When I first investigated the center, its leaders wouldn't talk to me. So liberal commentator Nomiki Kuntz defended them.
They have a long history of fighting against extremists like the KKK.
History, yes, but they labeled skeptical Muslims like Ayaan Hirsi Ali as haters.
If you have a horrible experience with religion, that's one thing. It's another thing to use those experiences as ammunition against others who are practicing their religion peacefully.
But they're just speaking, criticizing it.
Of course she has the right to free speech, as does the Southern Poverty Law Center has a right to push back.
We can stand together against hate.
The center also calls the Family Research Council a hate group.
The definition of a marriage is what it's been for 5,000 years. It's the union of a man and a woman.
I often disagree with the council myself, but do they belong on this hate map?
When they don't agree with you politically, they're going to list you as a hater.
You are haters. You hate gays.
No, I don't hate gay people, and I know gay people, and I have worked with gay people.
But once you become a hate group, you're a target.
Developing now, word of a shooting at the Family Research Council there in Washington.
One man was so enraged by what the Southern Poverty Law Center said about the Family Research Council, he went to their headquarters to kill people.
A man shot a security guard in the arm.
Fortunately, that guard stopped the man before he could shoot anyone else.
He told the judge that he was there to kill as many of us as possible because we were a hate group.
The center also smears the Ruth Institute, a Christian group that believes gays should not have an equal right to adopt children. They're not haters.
I like gay people. I have no problem with gay people. That's not the issue. The issue is, what are we doing with kids and the definition of who counts as a parent? There could be cases where the best person for a particular child would be their Uncle Harry and his boyfriend. You know, that could be. But we owe it to the children to give them the best we can, which generally is a married mother and father.
So you're a hater. When the Southern Poverty Law Center put the Ruth Institute on its hate map, the Institute's bank cut them off.
We've determined that you're an organization that promotes hate, violence, harassment, and so therefore we're not doing business with you.
The Ruth Institute and the Family Research Council are still on the hate list.
There's no appeal, and I sure don't know how you get off.
I suspect the center keeps its hate list long because that brings in lots of money.
Morris Deese's salary is more than my entire annual budget. So yeah, whatever they're doing, it pays.
It sure does. Years ago, Harper's Magazine reported that the center was the richest civil rights group in America, one that spends most of its time and money trying to make more money. They promised to stop fundraising once their endowment reached $55 million. But when they reached $55 million, they changed that to $100 million, saying that would allow them to cease costly fundraising. But when they reached $100 million, they didn't stop. They collected $200 million. Then $400 million. Now they've got $730 million. Yet they still smear people to raise more money.
Much of which is in offshore accounts, Caymans and places like that.
How do you know?
Oh, we look at their 990s.
And it says Cayman Islands?
Yeah.
Now the Southern Poverty Law Center calls groups that simply oppose sexually explicit content in schools anti-government extremists. Moms for Liberty and Moms for America are on the hate map because they dare do things like seek school board seats to try to stop districts from disregarding opinions of parents. Give me a break. The center puts them on the hate map, but not Antifa, the hate group that beats up people on the right. The center's become a hate group itself. It's now a left-wing, money-grabbing slander machine.
Yeah, like I said, I have covered Stossel. I've posted up stuff from Stossel before. That's on my WordPress. I'm actually going to have to put my WordPress down in the low bar here. SPLC has been like this for an extremely long time. You saw the John Stossel video. What ended up happening, more or less, is that, I mean, like, they were reporting on the overseas bank accounts, for instance, almost 10 years ago. A Voice for Men is another one that's it got taken off and then it got put back on. Yeah, effectively, and I mean, first of all, the FBI no longer consider it. Ergo, why they're currently being prosecuted, by the way, no longer considers the SPLC as to be a source of information for them. Well, once upon a time, they were. In fact, I can remember a very specific situation that was happening on the west coast of North America back in the late 80s that the SPLC put a pretty much a heavy stop to, for which, by the way, I'm grateful. If, again, I don't know what it was like in other West Coast cities, but I do know that in Vancouver, if you walked past Georgia and Granville, there were a series of skinheads, and they basically camped out at that particular. It's a it's an entrance to the Olympic line that runs out to Vancouver International Airport. But at the time, it was just basically a empty yard, which occasionally would put on events or host things. They would hang out there. If you looked like you weren't white, or if you stared at them too long, they would try to intimidate you. This happened a lot at Granville in Georgia, in Vancouver. These guys acted like they owned that particular part of Vancouver. And I even had a friend of mine get assaulted by these assholes. I'm also not going to get into some of the other stuff that occurred when I was living down there. There was also, and it turned out to be true, that this particular bunch of skinheads were getting support from the outside, which it turned out that they are a group called White Aryan Resistance. Ironically enough, the guy who runs White Aryan Resistance actually replied to my to the story. But anyway, yeah, by the time I got back to Vancouver in 93, they were gone. So yeah, and a lot of that had to do because the SPLC came after them hard, for which I am eternally grateful, because I saw how these guys were acting. They were acting very despicably. What has gone on between, I don't know exactly what the transition was between then and 2010, but it went from a group that engaged in a lot of legal activity to a group that would basically list, and you saw that it was the John Stossel video. They would list pretty much anybody as a hate group in order to justify continuing to raise money, which seemed to be their primary, which again, what John Stossel was reporting, seemed to be their primary source of what they were doing. Moving stuff to money to offshore accounts. Again, I'm not going to say that in of itself makes you criminal. Corporations do that. Yes, organized crime outfits also do that. It looks very suspicious, again, because like I said, the SPLC was told that if it got up to about 100 million, that it would basically stop doing its fundraising, and in fact, it hasn't. Now, there's been the two events that seem to be, and this, by the way, their odd link, and by the way, this goes way back to 1993. Their odd and mysterious link to McVeigh and Nichols and the bombing in Oklahoma City. Very, very suspicious, very, very interesting. That means that this particular organization had pretty much stopped or was already transitioning away from doing what it was supposed to be doing 30, 40 plus years ago. So it has been doing this for a while. Again, they will label pretty much anybody that opposes leftist causes right now as a hate group. They stopped being, I mean, the FBI took them off the list of contacts for criminal activity probably a decade ago now. And again, like I said, like, look what they're doing now. They're prosecuting them. Also, and I also have reported this on RPN, although I cannot specifically remember which show it was, about how the head of the SPLC was facing sexual harassment allegations at one point. I don't know how that went. I don't know how that turned out. But yeah, I suspect, and I'm just spitballing here and I'm just speculating. And my spitball and speculation is that, there's something afoot inside that organization, and that it has stopped being about protecting. It's definitely not about the South. It's definitely not about the poverty. yeah, they had noble intentions and noble origins when they started out, but again, right, and this is the same sort of thing that's gone on with feminism and a lot of these like left wing organizations that used to be like grassroots organizations that started in the Greenpeace is another one that started out in the late 60s and in the 60s to combat something that was very real. And along the line, the supply, this is effectively what's gone on here, is that the supply has no longer meets the demand. Now, and you've got this with the ADL, and you have this with not the SPLC. I can't remember the name of that other organization. It's not the Anti-Defamation League. What the hell? ACLU. Even the ACLU, although the ACLU is not as blatant about it, the AC, like all of these organizations have turned from being organizations that resisted peace stuff to just basically saying things to just continuously regenerate their existence, kind of like, again, sort of, and I will get into this when I get into my Roku 5 live stream, the whole issue of well, you know, look at what has gone on with look at what's gone on with again, look at what's gone on with feminism. You know, they've run out. They want for, and I have to go off on a bit of a side tangent here. Feminism has basically, I mean, the issue that I think feminism should be really holding on to is biological men taking away athletic opportunities from women in sports. They won't do that. Feminists in Europe and feminists in North America have willingly turned a blind eye to radical Islam. The most particular, the most significant ball dropping in that regard is them completely looking the other way on the Tara Rouge or rape game incidents that happened in Germany at the end of 2016. Now, again, I'm not saying that this is an ongoing thing, but I mean, it's like, yeah, am I overly surprised that this happened with the Southern Poverty Law Center? No, John Stossel was doing stories about the ACLU. Sorry, not the American Civil Liberties Union, the SPLC. Years ago, I actually dug up literally every video I could around the SPLC back in the 2000s, back in the 2010s, back in 2017, 2018. I posted them up at WordPress and shared that around. So, I mean, yeah, not overly surprised. It's also been pointed out that the number of prosecutions coming out of the Trump administration has definitely, for instance, Mike Comey was arrested and charged for his 8647 remark here this week. That's going to be on the next show, I should point out. So, it's, I don't know what was going on behind the scenes with Bondi, but obviously she was not the right choice for the role. That's really all I got to say about this. I'm going to stop that here. Yeah, what I'm going to do now is I have to go check on something here. So I'm going to put some music on. Let me just think about here. Let me just find something nice and long here. So I got a few minutes. Yeah, there we go. Six Wings Below by Roger Hansen. And yeah, that'll give me a few minutes here to get some stuff organized and get back here for section 2. So here we go.
Watchers in stone, all gods wearing heaven's throne. They say chosen, I say scarred. Every vision hits too hard. Woe is me, I've seen too much. Purified by a violent touch. 6 wings above me, scales below. Truth injected, forced to know. Holy words cut like knives, burned alive to stay alive. And this is one. Why does it wound? Sanctified too soon.
All right, so I'm back. Let's get on with this monkey show. Monkey show, get it? Okay. Topic number 2. All right. So yeah, this we're going to be covering a little bit more of this next week as well. Donald Trump at the press club gathering took another guy attempted. Well, what effectively happened was that the individual basically charged past security with a gun. Didn't get anywhere close to Trump because apparently he wasn't even on the right floor for where it happened. But yeah, he attempted to assassinate Trump and didn't do a particularly effective job when he was actually exposed. He, of all the individuals that have come up in the news about assassinations, this guy has probably got the most mundane this guy's probably got one of the most mundane backgrounds of anybody. I'm trying to I got the guy's name earlier and now I can't find it again. Hold on a second here. Yeah, so what ended up happening is that this individual, hold on a second. I'm trying to get his trying to remember it because I've always really, really shitty with names. That's something that I've always been. Not Thomas Crooks, Cole Thomas Allen, or Cole Allen was the guy's name. Cole Allen attempted to charge the fin. I've got a couple videos here. I'll just show them to you, and that'll probably explain it. So here's the first one. This one is without sound, just so you know. All right, so here we go. That's Kim coming up there. If you look at the upper right left-hand corner here, right, they're taking actually it looks like they're taking the sensors down at this point, right? So, when they're doing a takedown like this, it usually means they're at the end of the event. See, there he comes, right? Yeah, he gets a Yeah, there they go. They all come pouring out. Yeah, he doesn't get particularly far, to be honest with you. Yeah. So yeah, they're gonna go back. I got this from Ben Johnson's feed on Twitter, by the way. Again, look at the upper left-hand corner, the door there. Yeah, there he comes. And he comes running past. All right, and then we have this. And keep in mind, this is from Fox News. Take it with a grain of salt.
Andrew Kaczynski, K-File. You have new reporting on the suspect of things you found just combing through his social media. So we're talking about this.
Oh, no, this is CNN.
But you found
My
a
mistake.
whole lot more. In fact, thousands of things more. Like what?
Well, that's right. We reviewed 4,700 posts from 2 social media accounts that appear to belong to the suspect, and they include comments that compared the President Trump to Adolf Hitler, encouraged others critical of his presidency to purchase guns. Now, a Justice Department official confirmed to CNN that this X account, C-Force 3000, belonged to Allen. And then there's another account that appeared to belong to Allen on the website Blue Sky with biographical details that matched his life. Now, both of these accounts have been taken down, but we reviewed information from them on the Internet Archive's Wayback Machine. Those posts show a very clear shift over time. Early on, he was using his Twitter account mostly to post about the video game Super Smash Bros. He was promoting his own content, but then 2024, this changes and he's sharing a lot of political content that's very, very critical of Donald Trump. Now, Allen appears to have started posting on Blue Sky in February 2025. That's just a few weeks into Trump's second term. The account frequently criticized Trump, administration policies, and lamented that more powerful figures weren't taking action against the president. He wrote in one post, "Everyone knows that Trump is an effing awful person in multiple dimensions and no one has done shit." Some of the other posts and reposts advocated for gun possession and purchases. One post, he said, best time to buy a gun was days ago in December 2025. And then he added, the second past time is today. The last month, he posted that Trump was a traitor. The posts also echoed arguments that he made in the message that he allegedly sent to family members before the attack that laid out a plan to target Trump administration officials and expressed anger at their actions. Now, in the message that he allegedly sent to family members, he signed off with the nickname Cold Force. That's similar to both of these accounts.
Okay, so what really stood out about this guy is that, first of all, there does not seem to be, and again, we'll be getting more into some of the conspiracies that surround this. I mean, I personally find the one about using this to, I seriously doubt that Cole Allen would run in and put himself in potentially risk his life so that Trump could build a ballroom. But yeah, that's something that came up around this. Cole, though, did not. I mean, yeah, his background does suggest that he's left of center, and he definitely is. Although, again, right, at least when this first started out, there were definitely, just like they did with Tyler Robinson, and just like they did with, I can't remember what the name of the other, they tried to convince, the guy in Minnesota, they tried to convince people that these guys were right-wing. There were people trying to push that Cole Allen was another Trump supporter. That was very, very quickly shot down. Getting into some of the details about this, what really stands out with me around this is the fact that, and this is something that I have, because I have the Manosphere ties, this is something that I have specifically noticed or has occurred with feminists after Trump got elected. The rhetoric that has been coming out of feminism has been a lot more virulent and a lot more toxic and a lot more caustic and a lot more aggressive and a lot more openly misandric, right? And I also noticed this with the rhetoric coming up with the press about Donald Trump. I mean, again, right, I'm very familiar because I am curious and I had the time. There is an actual full-blown World War II podcast. Actually, there's a couple of them that go into agonizing, sometimes even boring detail about some of the stuff that happened when Hitler was running Germany back in the 30s, right? And the things that he was doing and the specific order that he was doing them in, right? what Trump is doing bears very little resemblance, but I mean, it hasn't stopped media outlets from trying to lie about this. For instance, and I will be getting into this later on this particular show. The pro Canada crowd in Alberta has been desperately trying to tie the Alberta separatist movement into something to do with MAGA. And there is a faction of people in Alberta that would like to see Alberta become a state in the US. I have very mixed opinions on that. But I mean, again, right? Like, you're seeing more of, and again, right? We were just talking about the SPLC, right? As it's been clearly, although keep in mind, they have only been indicted. They haven't actually been charged or been found guilty of anything yet. But you have organizations like the SPLC and the ADL, although the ADL, from what I understand, is a little bit more of a shakedown outfit than an actual funding the opposition to justify their existence, which, by the way, and I probably should have said this about the SPLC from the beginning, that's fraudulent criminal activity, which is why they're being indicted, right? I mean, right? You're supposed to be out there trying to stop white supremacists, and you're actually funding white supremacists and potentially even sending people, Charlottesville, for instance, sending people to these events to try to instigate instances to justify your existence. Getting back to this guy, I mean, if you go on social media and you look, you see, in fact, I had to turn down a topic from one of the guys that usually comes on the show, because when I took a look at the link that he sent me, and I took a look at this guy's profile, I mean, it was very clear that this dude had TD Trump derangement syndrome up the yin yang, right? Now, I got to say this. I am not yay gung ho Trump by any stretch of the imagination. That's still doesn't, I mean, like, there's been some very caustic rhetoric coming out from the media about this incident, about Trump and about this current administration. Now, they've also kind of, like, should be duly noted that ever since Bondi was fired or got stepped down, that they have started pushing a lot harder on some of this stuff. Again, like, we will definitely be covering Comey being charged for 491. That is definitely on the list of things that's going to be coming up here. Yeah, for 491, that's going to be a topic. And all's well that ends well. Guy didn't get anywhere near Trump. I am leaning more towards a lone wolf, but here's the thing, right? Because you saw this in Minnesota, and you saw this in Portland, and you saw this in Chicago, and you see this with Antifa, like, setting up and trying to snipe ICE agents and trying to name ICE agents and whatnot, and the way certain corporations kind of drag their heels on anti-ICE apps that were on their telephone, things like that. I mean, so yeah, you're seeing this happen more and more frequently. And again, right, like, I am not necessarily Team Trump. I am more in the Sam Tripoli state of mind on this, where it's like the ceremonial changing of the crime families, as opposed to actually being something a lot more serious, a lot different. But yeah, don't really know what else to say on this one other than, I suspect you're going to see a few more of these. I will point out though, man, like I have seen some pretty major stupid anti-MAGA stuff. And it just, when I challenge these people, still don't even have the skills to actually double down and make a point. Right. And here's the thing. There are millions of people who are completely brainwashed. Just take a look at what's happening in Canada right now. Carney is our prime minister because he pushed an anti-MAGA agenda to get reelected. And I suspect also, this is just me, I suspect he's also been deliberately sabotaging trade negotiations with Trump to make himself look like the hero and make Trump look like the villain. That's just me speculating here. More the conspiracy theories around this and some of the other stuff that's come up around this, that is going to be for 491, but that is it for this particular topic. I am going to end this topic. I'm going to put on music here. Going to put on, actually, I think this one would probably do it because it's a 9-minute long one. It's called Fuck Around, Find Out, and it'll give me a chance to get some other stuff organized here. So could be as long as 9 minutes on this break. So here we go, and think about Cole Allen when you're listening to this.
Turn this shit up. This ain't a song. It's a warning. Fuck around, you gon' find out. Talk that shit, better back it right now. No fake tough, no running mouth. Outlaw blood when the lights go out. I was raised where the fist come first, where respect means bleed or hurt. Ain't no safe space, ain't no rules. Just bad decisions and broken tools. You type real hard behind that screen. Act tough till the shit get mean. When boots hit dirt and I lock in, that tough guy act get real damn thin. I don't bark loud, I don't explain. I don't flick change, I flip pain. You cross my path with sideways talk. You gon' live when you try to walk. Fuck around, you gon' find out. Talk that shit, better back it right now. No fake tough, no running mouth. Outlaw blood when the lights go out. Fuck around, you gon' find out. Talk that shit, better back it right now. No fake tough, no running mouth. Outlaw blood when the lights go out. I don't need clout, I don't need views. I don't need friends that I gotta choose. My circle small, my temper short, my patience dead, my soul is warped. I seen fake men fold real quick. When pressure hits, they ain't built shit. All that talk about guns and crime, but cry like bitches when it's real time. This ain't rap beef, this ain't play. This the county jail, court date. This that mama cry, mugshot flash. This that life you can't take back. Fuck around, you gon' find out. Talk that shit, better back it right now. No fake tough, no running mouth. Outlaw blood when the lights go out. Fuck around, you gon' find out. Talk that shit, better back it right now. No fake tough, no running mouth. Outlaw blood when the lights go out. I don't forgive, I don't forget, I don't regret a single threat. You test my line, you cross that line. That's your problem, not fucking mine. I was built from bad decisions, cold nights, poor conditions. If hell's real, I shook his hand and walked back home a harder man. So keep my name out your fucking lips before your jaw needs stitches, bitch. This outlaw life don't come with peace. It ends with silence or police. Fuck around, you gon' find out. Talk that shit, better bag it right now. No fake tough, no running mouth. Outlaw blood when the lights go out. Fuck around, you gon' find out. Talk that shit, better bag it right now. No fake tough, no running mouth. Outlaw blood when the lights go out. Fuck around, better think twice. This ain't rap, it's real life. Right? One wrong move, one dumb sound. Fuck around, and get put down.
All right. So I'm back here. One more thing here, and then we're gonna one more song here, and then we're gonna get on to this. Here we go. All right. So, yeah, sorry about that. I had to do a little bit of reorganizing here. So, yeah, topic number 3. This is going to be a rather interesting one because this one kind of ties into where I'm living at the current moment and what is going on here, which I'm going to add a little bit of context to at this point. What has been going on in Alberta, in case you haven't noticed, because I mean, I generally lean in the direction of being a separatist myself, is the fact that there's a referendum that's going to happen here in October. I gotta have to point out that there have been polls that have been at least intentionally misleading. Now, the most recent poll, this one done by Rebel News, indicates that the support for separation isn't nearly as strong as you might think it is at this current moment. Keep in mind, it's 5 months before, at least 5.5 to 6 months before the vote actually takes place. So there's still a lot of ground to cover between now and then. Now, over the course of when all of this got started, I have seen smear pieces, attack pieces, attempts to minimize the support, polls that were deliberately and intentionally misleading and misguiding. I have also seen attacks on canvassers. Attempts to sabotage the signing process, attempts to interrupt it, attempts to declare it not valid, attempts to, at least, I got to point out here, the natives don't have a veto on this, but the natives keep attempting to act like will just keep acting like they've got a veto, even though they don't. They didn't have a veto in Quebec either, but, and along the way, there's also been stuff like Jeffrey Rath's office being doxxed and swatted. There has Mitch Sylvester having somebody come in and drop a bullet off on the counter of the store that he works in. all of this, and the issue is that while the mainstream media, and while there is still, and I don't know, like, I'm gonna go with the Noam Chomsky narrative on this as to why so many people are still buying into the media, the bought and paid for media in in the country. And it's like, yeah, you get home, you're tired, you don't if you're, especially if you're older, you don't necessarily know how to navigate the internet particularly well. You don't want to have to be engaged in deep thinking. You just want to sit at home, relax, maybe watch the news, but no, you don't want to do anything serious, right? So you're perfectly content to sit there. There's a segment of the public, and it is obviously a much larger segment than I think I'm comfortable with admitting, that is more than willing. And there's a certain percentage of people that are just simply more than willing to accept what authority is telling them without a second thought, without a second consideration, without a second thought about it. So what has been going? Well, there's a difference between, say, now in 2026 and what was occurring, say, during Gamergate, which was 2013, 2014, which was, God, 13 years ago now. Now, back then, the mainstream media still had a pretty solid stranglehold. So, I mean, yeah, there was stuff online that was countering the narrative, but the number of people watching stuff online versus the number of people who are still watching TV there was a significant dearth in the attention span between Group A and Group B. And the results of Group A and Group B and it has been gradually changing. Now, what happened late last year or even early this year is that online media advertising now exceeds what they're getting on television. And there's more people watching the online media space than there is on television. So it's like, even though there's still a significant number of people watching TV. Like, the gap is not particularly wide at this particular point. Like, it's not overwhelmingly in favor of internet advertising right now. But there is quite clearly a segment of a major segment of the population that no longer trusts the mainstream media for damn good reason. I mean, we have covered the basically the $600 million bribe that former Prime Minister Justin Trudeau gave the mainstream media. The bought and paid for prostitute media, I believe, is the word that Unacceptable Fringe calls them. There's more than a few people in the mainstream media that are willing to take that are willing to accept that are willing to take the money and continue to lie. Adler on the Edge, Charles Adler specifically comes to mind in this regard. The big issue here is that, what's going on, though, is that, and this should come as absolutely no surprise to anybody who's familiar with the alt media space, is that on YouTube, for instance, but I mean, if you throw in Rumble and Odyssey and BitChute and Banned and Censored and Kick and Twitch, and you throw in all of those other ones, there's more people, for instance, watching Unacceptable Fringe on YouTube to get their news about Alberta than they are going to CBC, CTV, and CBC, for instance. Global, sorry, CBC, CTV, and Global, for instance. And, you know, while they do, and of course, they also have strangleholds over radio, and they also have strangleholds over like print media, although print media is rapidly, of those three media sources, print media is the one that's really going downhill fairly quickly. The big issue that is going on here is that currently CTV is losing the fight online. CTV came out with a story. Now, one of the big issues, and this applies to pretty much every sphere. Now, some of I have a very mixed opinion about AI. If you use AI properly, AI can be an absolute godsend, right? AI can produce video content and can audio and can basically allow you to post up stuff, and it can actually do a very good job of informing. There's a lot of people out there that have a real stick up their ass around AI content. I don't. I have seen some very good AI content. However, that being said, there are definitely a couple of pro separatist YouTube channels that are basically doing nothing but churning out AI content. What CTV News did is that they ran a story, and while they didn't directly say that there were people that certain content creators were AI, what they did is they kind of, like, for instance, with Unacceptable Fringe, right? They posted this stuff up and they had Unacceptable Fringe. Basically, I saw the video, it was on the right hand side, right? They're not directly implying that Unacceptable Fringe, for instance, was an AI channel, because it's not. The guy who runs Unacceptable Fringe, for instance, is very real. But very clearly, what they were trying to do is get people to associate Unacceptable Fringe as an AI content producer, because they included his opening on that thing without actually, for instance, the video itself. It had a whole bunch of video content from people who quite clearly were AI content producers, and I got to say this, like, they very, very clearly were AI content producers. The whole issue here is that what they were trying to do is they were trying to throw in some other people who weren't AI content producers, including them in the piece that they put out at CTV News, without directly saying that they were, right? They just kind of like threw them in there at points without actually including them in the group that was actually doing the AI content, to hope that people were going to associate Unacceptable Fringe as AI content, for instance. Again, right? Those of you who are listening to this and going, well, that sounds like conspiracy theory. It's like, yeah, conspiracy theory, how? Okay, like, I've seen how the establishment twists and misrepresents and tries to make something appear as though something is something else. And they do this on an ongoing and regular basis, right? And they don't directly imply it, but what they'll do is they'll include it kind of in the sidelines. For instance, one of the more common tactics I've seen with this is using, for instance, Andrew Tate as bait, right? Louis Theroux did this with his documentary on the Manosphere. He included Andrew Tate, even though Andrew Tate was smart enough not to actually be involved in the interview with Louis Theroux. But Theroux included Tate content in there because Tate is a very triggering individual with some people, right? So yeah, what again, another example of this, and I have to go all the way back to 2012, 2013 on this, was a writer by the name of Pamela O'Shaughnessy, who wrote an article that pretty much it didn't directly call for the killing of males, but if you read between the lines and you looked at it, you could quite clearly see that that is exactly what she's going to do. Hold on a second here. I wonder if I've got it on this. You see if I've got this particular video on my feed here. No, I don't. Unfortunately, I don't, which is too bad. I don't have it. There is a Native woman who openly called for a white genocide in Minnesota here over a year ago. And she also framed her language in exactly this manner. So they don't actually, because they know about, the media knows about the First Amendment or freedom of speech, and they know what they can and cannot do. So they cannot actually come out and directly accuse, for instance, Unacceptable Fringe of being AI content. But what they can do is that they can include a cover photo of him in their content and not specifically mention him, and people will see his video or that cover photo in their story and will associate him with AI content, just kind of like by proxy. And what that does, it's like, yeah, that's effectively what is going on here. It's gonna get nastier, and it's gonna get worse as we go along on this particular issue. Because I mean, again, unlike what is going on, for instance, with Quebec, if Alberta leaves, for instance, basically Canada's bank, the province that is currently paying for most of the goodies that the Canadian government supplies, the piggy bank will be shut down. Alberta is the linchpin that sends all the money to Quebec to effectively buy Quebec off to stay in power, right? So what you're seeing here with Alberta independence and how serious it is, and the very fact that it's not going away. So they've done the ignoring part. Carney's done the ignoring part. They've tried the laughing at part now, and they're going into the attack mode. And here's the thing, right? And I'm speaking myself as an individual. I'm still waiting, and because my birthday is July 1st, 1967, right? I would love for the Canadian government to give me a reason to stay. They have not done it. They refuse to do it, or at least they haven't done it so far. I don't know whether they refuse or not, but I mean, they have not. Not only have they not done it, but they haven't even come up with. I mean, it's not like Quebec, for instance, where, they could go to people in Quebec and they could offer military, economic, social security, being involved in NATO and whatnot. And Quebec obviously has more people than Alberta, but Quebec is not like producing an excess the way Alberta is. They could go to Quebec and they could go, yeah, you know what? We can give you more money. We can do this. We could do this. We could promise all of this stuff. By the way, I found this actually kind of flabbergasted about that they tried this. Quebec actually tried to continue the transfer payments if they had successfully voted to leave, right? They're not, Canada is not going to have very deep pockets anymore if Alberta leaves. That's just the bottom line here. And it's like, again, like, you can send out all the attack dogs you want. You can send out all of those all of that stuff. Or you send out all of that stuff all you want, right? The bottom line is that, I mean, it's like, even though you're able to ignore your critics on press, TV, and radio, you can't ignore, you don't have an exclusive monopoly online. You don't have an exclusive monopoly. They don't have an exclusive monopoly on social media, right? And because they don't, enough people are learning the truth. And again, right, a lot of people are talking about the silent majority. And yeah, I did see a Rebel video recently that shows that, I mean, if a referendum for Alberta separation were held right now, Alberta would lose. That being said, 6 months is a very long time in politics. So the fact that they're attempting to do everything they can to undermine the separatists as opposed to, say, sitting down and talking to them is kind of indicative of where they're at. It reeks almost of entitlement. It reeks of the fact that they just, in Canada, the Laurentian corridor is still the place that dictates how the rest of the country goes. And what's going on is that you're seeing the Lower Mainland and the Alberta Edmonton corridor get bigger and bigger and bigger. And you're seeing, well, I mean, the 4 Western provinces, like, you want to throw in the entire 4 Western provinces. The 4 Western provinces have more people than Ontario, right? So it's not like there's an overwhelming majority, but again, there has been no moves made on part of the Laurentian elites to address the problem, right? So instead, what you're seeing are these attacks. And these attacks are having less and less and less effect. If you, again, right, if you know how propaganda models work, and I do, it's very difficult to manipulate somebody who knows how they work. If most people, though, do not know or even care how propaganda models work, and the people in power, particularly the Laurentian elites and the globalists, just think you're fucking stupid, right? I know you're not stupid myself, but I mean, the people in power, they think you're stupid and they want you to stay fucking stupid. So with that, I am going to move on here. There's going to be another transition, and I'm going to go check something again. So hold on a second. Here we go. There we go. And then music. I will have Mission Control by Retrowave, Synthwave. Okay, so here we go. And hey, where we go. Welcome to topic number 4. Topic number 4. Okay, Katy Perry, sexual assault, Ruby Rose. Okay, I have to throw something specifically in with the Katy Perry Ruby Rose situation. From what I have been able to determine about Ruby Rose is another one of those celebrities that likes to just kind of throw out accusations like this, yeah, she's had a disproportionately large number of individuals over the years. Well, she's not as bad as another woman, that actress that I talked about a couple of episodes ago. She has a record of accusing people of sexual assault. That being said, the individual we're talking about here in this particular case is Katy Perry. Katy Perry, once upon a time, I was kind of willing to cut Katy Perry some slack. Especially when she was married to Russell Brand. I'm noting that Russell Brand either cleaned up just before him and Katy Perry divorced, or she divorced Russell Brand shortly before he cleaned up. So Russell Brand was probably on the way out at the time. Now, the whole situation here is that, again, also Katy Perry, although she's not say as bad as Lady Gaga or Jennifer, especially not nearly as bad as Jennifer Lopez is, has a bit of a reputation of being something of a diva. Again, right, that has been my experience. A lot of, especially vocal musicians, have this really bad habit of being incredibly narcissistic and self-absorbed. There's been a lot of a certain conspiracy that the crowd that looks for Satanists and cultists under every fucking rock, the cultists behind every rock, like I talk about on the right wing about the Jew behind every blade of grass. Like there's that people that is absolutely convinced that every single person that works in Hollywood that's gotten to the top in Hollywood is somehow involved in this cabal, and that if you post a photo where you cover one of your eyes, somehow that automatically makes you one of them. And it's no, you have to do a lot better than that. The issue with Katy Perry is that there has been not just one or two pieces of, there's been a significant number of them. And then, of course, there's her recent involvement with Justin Trudeau. There's no way that Katy Perry, although I think Trudeau is basically trying to, at least privately, this is just an opinion, not a fact, suspect that Trudeau has been trying to play himself off as the victim in the particular situation about what happened to him in regards to what happened with him being forced to step down and then Carney being forced, having to take over. So when you get, okay, again, right, Ruby Rose and Katy Perry obviously walked around in the same circles together. And of course, you also have that recent space debacle that also occurred with Katy Perry. The whole issue, the issue here is that there's enough stuff floating around about Katy Perry that you can't just, even though Ruby Rose has a bit of a track record for making accusations, it's you can't just outright dismiss what Ruby Rose is saying just because she's Ruby Rose. that, like, I mean, Katy Perry has got an entourage. That entourage will almost certainly have individuals in it that would be quite happy to goon up other people if it is necessary, not just for the protection of Katy Perry, but, just as hired muscle, right? Frank Sinatra was notorious for having some rather nasty, brutish guys working under him, acting as his personal security. This is not anything new. So, would Katy Perry have been able to do something like this? Yeah. The the problem that evolves out of the Katy Perry situation is the fact that the person who is making the accusing is a feminist and a diehard feminist and a short-haired feminist and is certainly willing to throw out, and I believe she has made other accusations. Hold on a second here. Let me just take a look here. I mean, see, this is the thing about doing this is that, I mean, it's like sometimes, in the process of talking about this, like other stuff comes up and I have to kind of do a little bit of research on the fly here. So yeah, I'm actually Googling up how much history she has of actually making ape applications. Okay, this happened back in 2010. All right, this happened in 2010. So the incident, Rose claimed that in 2010 at the Spice Market nightclub in Melbourne, Perry pulled her underwear to the side and rubbed her vagina on Rose's face. Ew, like I wouldn't even tolerate that. Rose stated it took nearly 2 decades to speak out, stating she previously told the story on as a funny little drunk story because she did not know how else to handle it. That she was initially afraid of her needing a visa for the U.S. Following the allegations, LA Times reported that Perry's reps stated that the claims were categorically false. Victoria Police Australia confirmed they investigated historical sexual assaults from 2010 in Melbourne, which corresponds to the time of the alleged incident. People noted that a 2011 essay written by Rose resurfaced in which she detailed a night involving vomiting on Perry, though it should not contain the sexual assault allegation now being investigated. Rose later stated on social media that she had finalized police reports regarding the allegations, noted a Reddit user. Rose has previously made headlines and other separate allegations of misconduct regarding her time on Batwoman. Yeah. Yeah, she has made accusations in the past. That's the thing. Yeah, here's again, I have to keep this in mind here because this is something that this is on Threads. Threads is not necessarily okay. No, that's just so she has definitely Ruby Rose has definitely made accusations about other stuff that has gone on, and she's definitely more than willingly been willing to play the victim in the past, although not specifically from what I've been able to find out as I'm going along on this about specific sexual assault allegations. There was definitely stuff. Well, that whole Batwoman situation with her, it was a very poorly thought out, very poorly conceived, very badly written and produced TV series that did that the networks had to actually go out of their way, almost like they had to do with The Acolyte at the time, and lie about the numbers and try to misrepresent the numbers in order to make the show look bigger and better than what it actually was. Ruby Rose made some accusations specifically about the costume. What is well known is that Ruby Rose, I think it was after 2 seasons, ended up leaving the show, and the show only ran like 3 seasons. It was barely hanging on the CW. We covered it. The left made all sorts of attempts to block it, to run block for the story on the MSM, which of course didn't do anything to save the show. Again, though, Ruby Rose was not central to that, although she did leave and she did make some very specific complaints. If I look at photos of Ruby Rose, she does look like the type of woman that would make complaints just for the hell of it, right? That being said, the person that she's making these complaints about is Katy Perry. And Katy Perry, although she doesn't have the baggage of, say, of a Jennifer Lopez or a Lady Gaga, she does have baggage. And, and she does have her fair share of controversy. She's been kind of in the background because Billie Eilish just cannot keep her fucking mouth shut lately. The whole thing is really almost kind of like a comedy of errors to a certain degree. Do I think that Katy Perry would have done this? Again, she was married to Russell Brand at the time when Russell Brand was quite clearly on the fucking crazy train, right? Russell Brand has been, in particular, Russell Brand has been kind of mum on his time with Katy Perry and some of the stuff that went on around that. The fact that Katy Perry is involved with Justin Trudeau does not look fucking well for her. And I hate to have to say this about what is going on with Ruby Rose, but I mean, the manosphere in me has to bring this and has to say this out loud, right? I am always very suspicious about an accusation made by a woman, even if it's on another woman, about an incident that happened 16 years ago, where she goes to the press before she goes to the police, right? That is a big, huge red flag with me, regardless of what I think about Katy Perry. And I will freely admit, like, I am not a fan of Katy Perry in any form or fashion, right? The MGTOW manosphere in me cannot just outright condemn Katy Perry for her actions, even though, circumstantially, based upon some of the behaviors and some of the stuff that she's doing now and some of the diva behavior that she's been accused of in the past, makes it very difficult to just go, yeah, well, no, Katy Perry's innocent. I can't say with absolute specificity and confidence that Katy Perry is innocent because, there's enough circumstantial evidence with other things that Katy Perry has done in the past that clearly suggest that there's a possibility that she's not innocent. And yeah, Ruby Rose is also a very suspect source for very obvious reasons. But I mean, yeah, you're looking at what's going on with Ruby Rose and Katy Perry, and you're looking at the accusations, and this is more of TMZ Hollywood stuff. But at the same time, right, when you're looking at Ruby Rose, and this is something that I do from one of my jobs that I was involved in, oh well, they're not actually doing anything wrong. But the fact that X person is doing X activity goes to mentality. From a statistical point of view, a person with X mentality is more likely to go and do Y than, they say, just some random person on the street. So yeah, you have to consider the source here, as well as the person that's being accused. And I cannot rule out, despite the fact that I think my gut instinct is probably telling me that would Katy Perry do something like this? Yeah. But at the same time, right, from a absolute purely logical point of view, Ruby Rose does have a history. She does have a habit of making, she is a feminist. She does have a habit. She did make a whole shitload of complaints about the Batwoman series. I cannot just kind of casually just put this aside and go, no, Katy Perry's innocent. That the story leveled by Ruby Rose against Katy Perry is actually true. Because we were just discussing this with Lauren Southern around Andrew Tate just a couple of weeks ago, right? Lesser known celebrity makes an accusation against a larger celebrity, which just happens to coincide with something else. It's like, okay, there's not... Looking at the situation with Ruby Rose, does Ruby Rose stand to gain from this particular type of an accusation? On an absolute yes or no scale, I would say yes. There's details involved, but yeah. I suspect this one is going to go the way of the dinosaur. That's just me, but I mean, I had to bring this up as a discussion point, mostly not because of Ruby Rose, but because of Katy Perry and her kind of involvement with former Prime Minister Justin Trudeau. And with that, we're going to move on. We're going to move on to topic number 5. I believe it is topic number 5. Yeah, topic number 5. This one might actually go on for a while. So, yeah, I'm going to put some more music on here. Just give me a second. This one will be cinematic. Elegant Machine. That'll be the one. All right. So here we go. For the next 4 minutes, Elegant Machine.
Welcome. My traditional name is Yolkamot.
This is Chief Lenora Joe. She claims they have found the burials of 40 children beneath the parking lot of their residential institute in Seashelt.
The GPR identifies 40 unmarked children's graves. Shallow graves. Only large enough for the young bodies to lay in the fetal position.
What appears to be remains of some sort of old drainage pipes ditched into the ground and paved over to accommodate a parking lot is being used to accumulate numbers of suspected buried children. The 40 anomalies that Lenora Joe claims are children buried beneath their parking lot were added to this sign shortly after this photo was taken, for a new total of 10,068. Without any scrutiny from news organizations, this sign remains standing in Powell River, a sad reminder of the post-truth era we live in. And not far from Powell River, back in Seashelt, underneath the band's parking lot, these anomalies have not been excavated and are presumably still being driven over.
We are still processing, and we are not comfortable disclosing exact locations. Today we share the news with you, and then we turn our focus back to our community. We know there will be many questions.
Questions such as how much money was secured from the federal government, and why, like the Kamloops anomalies, haven't there been excavations as stipulated in these money requests? What or to whom has this money gone to?
Across Canada, nations have conducted investigations, and each time results are shared with the number of children's remains found in the ground. And it started with the 215. For the children we have found, we are going to let them rest right now. This entire process has shaken me to the core. I have cried daily, waiting for the results.
Okay, I have no idea if I muted or unmuted myself, so I'm going to have to go back to the beginning here. Back in 2021, I believe it was 2021, they found, and by the way, the Trudeau government already knew about this was going on. They found disturbances in the ground outside the Kamloops Indian Residential School that looked like several hundred bodies buried at the site. Now, I am familiar with the hold on a second here. Again, I'm going to have to go and do a little bit of a that came up with the concept of the final solution in World War II. I can't remember. Hold on a second here. I am busy typing into Google as I'm talking here, so if I sound a little distracted, that's what it is. The Wannsee Conference, that's the name of it. I am familiar with the concept of the Wannsee Conference and the issue of the final solution, and a guy by the name of Kevin Arnett. And this is where it kind of started falling apart for me, because again, right, you want to talk about, and by the way, they only talk about missing Aboriginal women. They don't talk about missing Aboriginal men at all. It almost seems like only women seem to be victims of violent crime, even though the crime stats quite clearly indicate that's not the case. I will discuss that at a future date. The whole issue is that, again, with my direct family, I actually had members of my family that went to these residential schools. Their story was that they went to the schools over the school year, came back, worked on the fields in the summer, and they came back. They were not held there against their will. They went willingly. Now, our Kevin, or I believe it was Kevin Arnett, made some very, very extraordinary claims. Numbers like 80,000 missing Native children, which just does not jive with with what I knew, because Métis kids did get taken to these residential schools. Nobody in my immediate family, it didn't happen to anybody in my immediate family, but if Métis kids lived on reservations, they were subject to being taken to these residential schools. The whole situation, the situation was, though, is that, I mean, Kevin Arnett threw out a number that was just like, wow. I believe it was 80,000 at the time, which would have meant, first of all, like the sheer math of that would have meant between 6 and 12 students per school per year would have had to have died. And if Native kids were dying at that rate at those schools, there would have been a lot more talk about it. It would have been just like, there would have been a whole lot more talk about it, a whole lot more discussion about it. Would have been talk, just kind of like, like when you run into Jews or gypsies or Romani, right? Jews, gypsy, Romani at the end during World War II, right? They talk about the number of family members that disappeared, that type of thing. That's the same sort of, and I have had a little bit of experience with that. Not Jewish, have some people who were Jewish who definitely lost family members in the Holocaust. This is something that would have been discussed a lot more, and it just wasn't, right? Because, and that A does not equal B, because if you go and look at the concentration camps in Eastern Europe, and you look at the way the Jews reacted to it in A and B and how they discuss it, and you look at the response to the Native community here, like, it just doesn't add up. He also made the accusation that Mengele spent some time in Montreal. I have no way of proving or disproving that. I may have to go and do an investigation, but I mean, he made a bunch of very incendiary claims. I was familiar with him because he had been making incendiary claims about missing natives for a very, very long time. And to the point where he had actually, I believe he used to be a United minister, and he got booted out of the United Church. So, I mean, yeah, a lot of his stuff did not add up, right? Now, at the same time, this is Canada. If you don't live in Canada, then you really don't know how easy it is to hide a body in this country. Again, I grew up in a place that was along what was otherwise known as the Highway of Tears. There have been scores, dozens of women in particular that have disappeared hitchhiking along that road. Most of them have never been found. There are there's roads off the Yellowhead that you can drive down, and it is extremely easy to hide. It would be extremely easy to hide a body and not have it be discovered. So, as much as I wanted to say that this was just a made up fabrication, my response when I first heard about this was to go, okay, I'm going to wait until a body gets produced. More on that in a second. There were calls to cancel Canada Day. There were calls, again, right? I also suspect that a lot of this issue about the Native treaty rights, I suspect that the elites in Ottawa were using this particular situation to platform this going on down the road. And so a lot of the stuff in BC, they are using what went on in at the residential school, or allegedly what was going on at the residential school, to justify it to a certain degree. And there's certainly enough money involved in this situation that you could definitely see grifters, etc., stepping forward to try to grab their piece of the pie. You literally cannot dismiss that at all. All right. So I guess V is joining in. V, are you there? Oh, hey, V. Yeah, we're almost done the show. I'm currently doing the residential school thing. So if you want to have a listen, listen to what I have to say, and then you have something else to say, because the only other topic I've got is Starbucks after this. So, but anyway, let me, V, introduce yourself, and then I'll keep moving here.
Yeah, you guys know me. I'm V, and I've been very busy lately. I gave you a message there.
Likewise, yeah.
And yeah, so I'm just doing what I can.
All right. So, going back to this whole thing here. What is going on specifically is that I have covered this. I haven't been fanatical about covering it, but I mean, I have to be straight up and honest about this. I have got direct family involvement, because I had family that was at the residential schools, right? Now,
wait, are you talking about where the Indian children, the Native Americans, were being disappeared?
The Kamloops school and everything. Yeah.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So yeah. So the whole situation is that, I mean, corporations threw money at reservations, governments readjusted themselves. That's when they actually started up with the Treaty 6 and whatnot. Again, I and V kind of probably, because V was just only jumped in here lately. A lot of the insanity that you're currently seeing in BC right now, I suspect that there is a platforming to a certain degree. They use this as a platform. Here's the issue. And again, I have to just kind of cover some ground here. My take on this when it first happened was that I'm going to wait for some bodies in. Yeah, would governments in the West experiment on, especially back in the 30s, back from, say, the first half of the 20th century, would governments be willing to engage in experimentation and engage in this type of behavior with other than whites? Absolutely, they would. Here's the problem. Yeah, absolutely they would. The Tuskegee experiment comes up. Here's the issue that comes up, though, right? And this is the part, because I mean, when we get to the back end of this, we're gonna find some stuff out. People, I mean, at one point I was forced. I will say forced, but I was kind of a reluctant, because they had. I still actually have the shirt. Every Child Matters. It's the big orange shirt. If you don't live in Canada, you probably have never seen it. But it's like, yeah, no. The company I was working for at the time actually engaged in National Awareness Day, and like everybody on my crew. National Awareness Day. Okay. Well, all right. Basically, it's a memorization of in particular, the the situation in Kamloops with all the quote unquote dead bodies, right? And what they did in my particular situation at the place I was working at the time is that everybody was given an orange shirt that said "Every Child Matters," right? And we were asked to wear it, and it was like, even though I'm Native, I have at that point, and this is the other issue that I was going to get into about this, is the fact that at that point they had done 3 more excavations and had found nothing. Lauren Southern, a woman, by the way, that I have no fan of by any stretch of the imagination. You know, she took a she did a she drove out to the Kamloops school, used a drone, flew because you can't walk on the Kamloops Residential School anymore and just walk around, right? They flew a drone over, and this was probably about a year and a half, 2 years ago, and they had made zero attempt to excavate any of the bodies that were allegedly, and again, I had to say allegedly, buried on that reservation. So they hadn't done, even though they had got millions of dollars and had engaged in a huge, massive victim industrial complex and had made attempts in other places to excavate bodies to find something and had found nothing, right? This whole victim industrial complex just kind of like took on a whole life of its own, totaling almost, by the time it was done, almost $100 million spent on this. No bodies recovered. None. They have not found a single body. They have not produced a single body, and that they still hold on to this. Well,
Okay, well, so since it's just you and I, can we go back and forth on this? I have no dog in this race, in this topic. However, I do have and it's always a white guy, who's a Native American history specialist, professional, self-proclaimed, not any actual academia, but self-research, who swears up and down by the bodies. And I haven't seen anything official in the news. And
there isn't any. There isn't anything. They haven't produced a body. They
you
haven't.
have it?
No, they have not. They have not produced a single body. 3 different excavations. I think one in Manitoba, one in Ontario, and I think one in Saskatchewan. They never bothered to. They have never done an excavation to try and do an autopsy on any of the bodies at the Kamloops site at all. And yet they played this huge victim industrial complex. And again, you weren't here when I was talking about this. I suspect that a lot of this was also done to kind of like platform some of the stuff that was going on. What's currently going on in BC with all of these confusing land claims that are going on in British Columbia right now. This is Canada content, by the way. Nice timing.
Yeah.
Nice timing.
Yeah.
Nice timing, V. So don't worry. The next topic is Starbucks. I'm sure you'll have plenty to say on that one.
Plenty.
So anyway, bottom line is that what has ended up again, to top it all off, right? When people started asking where are the bodies, the Trudeau government actually tried to label criticism of the Kamloops school incident. They tried to label that as hate speech. They tried to censor any criticism of what was going on and the fact that they hadn't found any bodies as hate speech. Now, I have to stay fair and I have to stay balanced on this. It's been pointed out more than a few times. And again, because I live on the highway of tears, I know this is a fact. It is extremely easy to hide. There's most of Canada's wilderness. It is extremely easy to hide a body. 2, the Wannsee conference because allegedly there was a quote unquote Nazi escapees that were involved in this process post World War II. And having had a little bit of a history with that, being familiar with the history of that, what ended up happening during World War II is that during the Wannsee conference, the Nazi Party decided that that's the reason, that's how the term concentration actually came about, right? They decided that it was better off to ship the Jews, the Romanis, the homosexuals, the gypsies to concentrated areas to engage in the executions as opposed to spreading SS troops and having specialized units going around committing murder on a low scale. That's where the term concentration came up from. The reason why they're called concentration camps is because they're concentrating the population in a given area.
Correct. Absolutely correct.
That's the reason why they are called concentration camps. The pattern matches, right? Like because the claim that Kevin Arnett made about 90,000 missing natives. Again, I said this before you were on. If you spread that out over the entire history of where they actually had most of these schools running, would have been between 6 and 12 missing kids per school per year over a period that lasted almost a century. Disappearances on that level inside my own community would be talked about a whole lot more, just like they're still talked about inside the Jewish community to this day. They're not. There's no talk about in any groups, any native groups that I've run into, there's no talk about mass disappearances of native children.
Well, this is a topic like I'm, Blackfoot, Cherokee, Caribbean. I have mixed lineage, and you are the same, Norky. And so, but how we know that the Native American population had been genocided in one way or another.
Oh, absolutely. Mexico was really bad, by the way.
Very bad. So, but when it reaches up to Canada, I don't know. You guys are all nice up there. I know there's a million ways. As you said, you're covering all the bases. Like there's ways to get rid of bodies, especially 100-year-old bodies. The bones, just excavating the bones can destroy all the evidence that you need destroyed. Maybe somewhere I'm playing devil's advocate. Maybe there's somewhere down the line that maybe there could be a cover up when the excavating is happening.
Yeah, it's possible. Anything is possible. Again, though, it would be especially given the victim industrial complex, it would be very much in their interest to
If somebody really wanted to find out, you don't need a full bone. All you need is a little sample and go take it to a lab somewhere, right?
Yeah, exactly. But in order to determine what actually was going on, and oh, by the way, you also have to factor in the fact that there's also a lot of sexual abuse that was going on at some of these schools as well.
Oh,
right?
Wow. Yeah, you're absolutely right.
So it's like you kind of like you're kind of like, yeah, there was some pretty nasty stuff going on, but at the same time, though, like with my immediate family, like the relatives that I had that went to those residential schools, they went to the residential schools, they did their schooling there for the year, and then they came back home and they worked on their parents' farm for the summer, and then they went back, right?
That sounds about right. Yeah.
It's like they would have had, like, given the sheer numbers of kids that were doing that, like somebody would have said something, and it's just not there. So it's like, so again, what has gone on, and the reason why I brought this up as a topic, and now that I've been dancing around it for a solid 18 minutes here, maybe I should bring this up. The Kamloops Residential School has quietly decided to drop the claim that there's bodies, aka they are not going to be, even though they were given millions of dollars to do it, they are not going to extract any of the bodies that are at the Kamloops Residential School, which is the basis of all this starting out. In fact, they are quietly dropping the whole thing, right? And I'm not saying that they're doing it because there's nothing there, but again, right, like the government, the Canadian government can't run block for them anymore. They can't lie their way out of this anymore. So they're just going to quietly drop this and hope that it goes away. That's how it looks like to me, because it was like, I mean, the whole Kamloops Residential School thing was huge. There were calls to cancel Canada Day, and like probably at least 100 churches got torched, which, by the way, the Canadian government didn't do anything about. And I'm not particularly religious, so I don't have a dog in that fight. But I mean, there's a lot of stuff that went down around this
Mm-hmm.
that a lot of people have to make some explanations for. And where did all that $100 million go? Because they certainly weren't doing a lot of excavating, right?
Well, and you know what? You got to take. Okay, you got to follow you got to follow the money. How much does a crew of construction workers cost for a certain period of time, and a time period in which they're not mostly working? Let's be honest. And so money is being funneling somewhere, and in my experience, that goes into public opinion or PR or cover-ups.
Exactly. And well, I mean, again, with all of this as well, again, uh you have to do a very specific type of excavation when you're talking about bodies, right? Missing and murdered bodies, right? Like, you can't just go in with a shovel and start pitching shovelfuls of dirt. You actually have to go in with an archaeological crew, and you have to do the excavation archaeological style, because you don't want to miss something, right? Because it's like you have to like literally go down, like, I think it's like not even a quarter of an inch at a time, and you have to like carefully scrape it away. Like, you can't just go in, like, yeah, you don't like.
Dude, excavation. I mean,
Yeah,
excavation
archaeological
is
excavation is like really long, takes a long time, but it's not that expensive.
for archaeological excavation. You're talking toothbrushes. You're talking, just the littlest of tools. There has to be a larger excavation before a smaller excavation happens.
Yeah, they have to narrow, they have to
They
have a
have to
precise point.
zero
Yeah.
in on the details.
Mhm.
So, but there's in that process there is details lost in the mass excavation.
Yeah. Oh,
So
exactly. Yeah.
so I don't have what I want to put through here is that I'm part Blackfoot, part Cherokee. I'm Caribbean African. I I mean I know my lineage, and I there's victimization, there's disenfranchising, there's slavery, there's all kinds of human atrocities that are attributed to my history. But you, as a Canadian who's half white, half what tribe?
Métis, Métis. Actually, Métis is actually, as of like they're not considered white, but they're not considered native. They're actually like an like entirely separate group.
So a group that is an early assimilation.
Yeah. Not going to go into the long story about it.
No, you don't have.
The first 30-second elevator pitch. The first like the voyagers, like the
Uh-huh.
Scottish, the French, and whatnot that were involved in the fur trade.
Oh,
That established all the trading routes with the Hudson's Bay Company. They were the first whites, at least in Western Canada, that went out there. Some of
yeah.
them just went out and they stayed out there. There were no white women around, so they used the alternative. They took native wives, right? And they had a bunch of, at least according to both the whites and the natives, they had a bunch of fucking mongrel kids that didn't fit in either culture, right?
I
That's where I came from.
yeah. I look. Listen. I look solid black, but I have a great grandfather who's pure blood Italian. I've got Native American, the Blackfoot Cherokee, and then there's the Caribbean African. And I didn't have the mainstream slavery of the U.S. until later on, but that's because I come from a lineage of bred black Barts,
Mhm.
which means I'm create, and people make fun of me when I say this because I only have a history of white older women, but that's what we were bred for. It's a trait that I have. I love older white women. So I was amongst the even after the slave trade, the most intelligent, the engineers, the royalty, the whoever was top brass got shipped over as slaves first, and also to Europe. And I have that record of the more intelligent that were allowed to keep some history and some knowledge of language and science. And so that sort of filtered into what I am now today. And so I'm grateful for that, but at the same time, part there's part of my lineage that is privileged. However, most of it is victimization to the max. And so I feel as though this is a very relevant topic for the children that have went. I mean, there are genetic tests that tells you where you come from. If you have all these broken branches of your family lineage, then that should be uncovered through what was it called, 23andMe or
Oh
something.
yeah,
And so
ancestral DNA is what it's called. Yeah.
So even something that these schools have they have claim on them, a conspiratorial claim on them, which is why all this stuff's been done. But even genetic testing should show a cave or a cavity or an empty space of genetic sequences that never fell anywhere. So, has anybody looked at that side of this whole thing?
Oh, again, right? They haven't uncovered any. They haven't uncovered a body. They haven't bothered to uncover a body. That's so
Not even DNA testing the soil where they're supposed to
they
lay?
haven't done. I mean, and yeah, here's the thing: they've had plenty of money and plenty of time to do it, and they haven't done it. Right? So it's like, yeah. What it basically
in
boils
the interest of Native Americans, this is where you and I connect because we are both Native American blood. Is this something that should be pushed further? Is there a lack of due process? Is there a lack of? Is there some justice that we should be chasing, or is this just false altogether?
Well, I mean, it's just. I mean, they should have done this years ago, and they haven't. Right? And it's like they've made efforts to try and find bodies elsewhere, but they haven't even so much as put a shovel in the ground at the Kamloops site. And now they've just kind of quietly backed away from it. And, it's looking, and to quote one person a couple people that I saw when I found out about this on Instagram, somebody just threw out the word money laundering. And I mean, I am very, very hard pressed to disagree with what they're saying, right? It looks very much like victim industrial complex money laundering.
Dude,
right?
if you make a claim about something and it's not true, and you have government funding, dude, you created jobs.
Oh yeah, there's lots of
done. Yeah, you created a situation where policies can be built upon. You've done so much. Yeah, you're absolutely, dude. That's very astute that you bring that up.
Anyway, we still got one more topic to cover here. We have a transition. Hold on a second here. Let me just put this up. Yeah, we've got some. We've got some. Hold on a second here. Alexander Nakarada. Melodic interlude, about a minute and a half. Yeah, I do this so that if I have to break down this topic or I have to keep track of stuff, I can. So a minute and a half of this, and I have to go. Actually, no, we'll do chill calm. That's probably a little bit better. It gives me a chance to go check my laundry. So we got about 2 minutes to go do something else here. So I'll see you in about 2 minutes.
Can't the rat rave about something? All right, well, I'm going to do so anyways. Hey, guys. I'm B.
Yeah, can't talk right now, V. I have to go check my laundry. I'll talk to you later.
Okay.
All right, that's it. Sorry about that, folks. Okay, so we have one more topic here. That topic is Starbucks. I got Starbucks is moving their headquarters to Nashville. They're not doing it all at once, but they're moving it to Nashville. I've got 3 videos here, probably about 5 minutes long in total. I'll play them in order. So here we go.
Developing tonight, Starbucks is planning to close more stores here in Seattle. Thanks for joining us here at 11. I'm Preston Phillips. 5 stores will shut down in the coming weeks. Those stores located at First Hill, the Metropolitan Park East Building, the Seattle Center Armory, on the Ave, and at Seattle Children's Hospital. This comes less than a week after Starbucks announced plans to open a new corporate office in Nashville, Tennessee. KOMO's Jackie Kent live tonight in Seattle with the latest for us. Jackie?
Yeah, Preston, we're learning this came as a shock to many customers and even workers. In fact, 4 of those locations you just mentioned are unionized shops. A spokesperson with the coffee giant tells me that union status had nothing to do with closing those locations. Frustration is brewing for some UW students needing their caffeine fix.
It's been my daily morning routine to just order Starbucks at home and then pick it up on the way to school. And I can't do that anymore, so that's quite a bummer.
Starbucks confirms it's closing 5 Seattle locations in a matter of weeks based on a combination of factors like customer experience and financial performance. 4 of those stores are unionized shops, including the U District, and the site of prior pickets for better pay and working conditions.
What's outrageous?
Starbucks wages! Still, the coffee giant insists union status has nothing to do with their closure decisions.
Wondering the reason why, because it's one of the Starbucks that's doing fairly well compared to other locations.
In response, the Baristas Union Workers United filed an unfair labor practice charge and says it will demand to bargain with Starbucks about these closures. The move comes days after the company announced it would add a corporate office in Nashville. We asked workforce commentator Thomas Fellows what that could mean for Starbucks' future in its hometown.
Who knows what will happen in the future? I think the CEO has to do something drastic because their stock price is down 13% in last year.
A Starbucks spokesperson tells KOMO by email the company is always evaluating its portfolio of stores, adding sometimes that means investing in updates or trying new formats. Other times it means making the difficult decision to close a location that no longer fits how people in that community live, work, or gather. Starbucks tells me, like in past practice, the workers at these impacted locations will be offered the chance to transfer to other stores so they can keep their jobs or be given severance. I'm also told they were given 30 days notice that their coffee houses will close in early April. For now, live in Seattle, Jackie Kent, KOMO News.
Hi, everyone. There is big news coming out of the Starbucks Center here in Seattle's Sodo neighborhood as Starbucks CEO Brian Niccol has confirmed what have been rumors now for months that the company will open a new headquarters in Nashville, Tennessee, one that they say will house up to 2,000 employees, serving as a satellite headquarters. At least that's how the company is describing it right now, while also acknowledging that there will be employees that are currently working in Seattle that will transition at some point to Nashville over the course of the next 5 years. This is a 250,000 square foot spot that is opening on the Cumberland River that Starbucks says they'll invest upwards of $100 million to build out as part of a mixed-use development and give them a footprint in the southeast. Now, Starbucks is officially saying that this is an effort to expand the business, to expand their presence in the Southeast, but it comes at a time when the company has been frustrated not only by local officials, but by state officials. Katy Wilson, the new mayor of Seattle, who's now been in office for a few months, was part of a labor protest outside a Starbucks store. We know that the company has closed a couple of their roasteries here in Seattle, and the company likely upset with the recent taxes that were passed down in Olympia, including that income tax, including some recent B&O taxes. In fact, Wallet Hub did a survey recently of all 50 states and put Washington at the 25th highest tax burden of all 50 states in the country. Tennessee is third from the bottom at 48. So that has been a factor why we have seen big businesses, Fortune 500 companies, move into Nashville, move into Tennessee. Amazon did it back in 2018 and 2019, now has over 3,000 employees there, expanding their footprint across the country. Starbucks now doing it as well. We do have fresh reaction for you from the mayor's office, from the Seattle City Council. We'll bring that to you on the TV side. But for now, from the Starbucks headquarters in Seattle, I'm Chris Davis. Starbucks is an important part of the fabric of our community here in Washington State, to put it mildly. Governor Bob Ferguson acknowledges after he had multiple personal conversations with Starbucks CEO, the company made the decision to build a new headquarters in Nashville. We understand that any business has to do what they feel is best for them, and expanding their footprint around the country. They're not the first company to do that. Starbucks, Meta, Amazon, Microsoft, all cutting jobs in Washington State. Are you concerned about the business climate right now? Of course. Yet Ferguson blames AI more than a tax for recent events. A lot of states would love to have our problems in a certain way, but everybody's feeling the impacts of AI and changes that are going on for sure.
Last one.
Seattle is the worst office market in the country. Their solution is a bookstore. Welcome to the Jason Rant Show, presented by None Better Tax Resolution. Seattle's office vacancy rate is 33.3%, worse in the entire country. Not second worst, dead last. And we got here on purpose. The 10 most valuable office buildings downtown have lost more than half their value since 2021. Amazon has shed 10,000 employees from downtown Seattle while adding 15,000 in Bellevue, because companies would rather pay double the rent across the lake than deal with Seattle's tax system. OpenAI, Shopify, they're not even giving Seattle a second look. Howard Schultz left for Florida. Starbucks is heading to Nashville. Net migration to Washington is down 7,500 people. The state lost $500 million in income to out-migration in a single year. That's the headline. Here's the punchline. Barnes & Noble is opening downtown on May 6th. And the Downtown Seattle Association's John Scholes, he called it enormous, a, quote, indicator of confidence in our center city. It's the largest retail lease in downtown Seattle since 2020. Let that sink in for a moment. A bookstore. That's the bar. That's what passes for a comeback. It's going into that old North Face space, meaning a clothing store left and a bookstore moved in. Progress! And it's 4 blocks away from Amazon's headquarters, the company that spent 2 decades hollowing out this city while shifting jobs to Bellevue. You genuinely can't make this up. 35% of downtown offices are empty. Buildings are worth half of what they used to be. And John Scholes is on LinkedIn posting pictures of a Barnes & Noble like it's VE Day. You don't fix a dying city with a bookstore. You fix it by making Seattle a place businesses actually want to be. And right now, they don't want to be here. And no ribbon-cutting event is going to change that. I'm here with our local tax expert and advocate, Greg Nunn from None Better Tax Resolution. New year, new set of IRS rules.
Okay, so yeah. Boeing, by the way, which is the Boeing, Microsoft, Starbucks, and I think there's one other, I think Amazon as well. All of those companies got their corporate starts. In fact, at one point in the 70s, Boeing was the only major employer in Seattle. And when Boeing went into a downturn, there was actually a running joke in Seattle where the last person in Seattle to leave, please turn out the lights. In fact, it was so bad that Seattle actually had a professional baseball team, not the Mariners, the Pilots, and they pulled out. That's how bad it got. Now you had a mayor, and she like literally, and I mean, I actually will have to go back here and I'll have to post it up just to make a point here. There it is. This photo, right? She's Starbucks is one of the biggest corporate employers in Washington state and specifically in Seattle. Now, if you're the mayor, you try to and they did the Washington state and the old mayor did this with Boeing. I'm absolutely gobsmacked that Microsoft hasn't pulled out, or I wouldn't be surprised at all if Microsoft has moved a lot of its business elsewhere as well. But I mean, Starbucks originated in Seattle. Regardless of what you think of Starbucks, I mean, it's like, they're one of the biggest employers in the area, and you don't, for instance, like you don't call for a Starbucks boycott because a couple of fucking baristas want to fucking unionize, right? Like you steer fucking clear of that shit. And you only step in if things maybe get out of hand, right? And no shit. And again, like Starbucks is not necessarily the best place to work, right? But it's like, no goddamn kidding. Starbucks is in the process of pulling up tracks, and they are making their way out of Seattle. They're going to eventually pull out completely. And this is not Rearson, who was living in Calgary. He lived right in downtown Calgary, by the way, for the longest time. And he was telling me, and Calgary is not getting hit nearly as hard as Seattle is. But I mean, he was talking about how the downtown is emptied out. I live in Edmonton, and I can tell you that from what I'm seeing downtown right now, because I work just north of downtown, that particular, especially the downtown mall, that place is definitely emptied out. And it's like, so am I overly surprised when you have a state and municipal governments that are punishing you for being a corporation and treating you like a tax resource, like they're somehow entitled to yet more money out of you? Because again, the current mayor, Katy Wilson, is allegedly, I think she's like a full-blown socialist, right? Am I overly surprised that Starbucks decided to pull up shop and is going to be in the process of moving to Tennessee? Absolutely no. I'm not surprised. I am not surprised in the least. In fact, my personal feeling on it is like, well, like you're doing this to yourself, right? Like you're doing this to yourself. And too bad for Seattle, but then as you heard with that last video, I mean, like what you're seeing, even in like, for instance, Edmonton, and specifically Edmonton, it would be considered I'm going to put this into Canadian terms. I got to point out something here. In Canada, red is blue, blue is red. So what you would see in Canada is that you're seeing Alberta and BC, Edmonton and Calgary being red cities, red islands in a sea of blue. For the American terms, that would be blue islands in a sea of red, right? Yeah. Not a big surprise here. Again, Boeing has also moved a lot of their operations out of the Seattle area. And it's again, right, when you start looking at where if you're looking at the corruption, and you're looking at the politics, and you're looking at the sense of entitlement and whatever, like it wouldn't surprise me in another 20, 30 years that the West Coast is in the same situation that the Rust Belt is currently in, albeit for different reasons. And yeah, so it's getting very close to 8 o'clock here. So I mean, we have to keep this moving and get this show over with so quickly as possible. So V, if you have anything to say it, because I definitely got to wrap this show up. V? V? V?
Okay, I have to find the actual window, the tab. I hate these. Okay, anyways, my phone is janky. I just Starbucks. I mean, so Starbucks is just crap. Can we just say that? I have someone who, and I hate coffee. I'm not a coffee person. I've never been, and the coffee has actually led to the death of one of my children, and no, in vitro. Um, so I'm not a coffee fan, and even in the subculture that appeared when Starbucks did for coffee, uh, uh, in my neighborhood where I lived, hey, I grew up in a very privileged. No, okay, I came from the hood, and during puberty time, I moved into a very privileged neighborhood. You know, moving on up in the world. You know, Starbucks. Starbucks opened up across the street. Okay, I'll give more credit now. A block from my high school, across the street, and that's just where the cool kids hung out. Cool kids. I I didn't see the point. I did. It was just such a cultural thing, and that's all it was. Eh, It got such traction, and I don't know if this is even true or not, but Starbucks is partially or half owned by Magic Johnson. I don't know if that's true or not, but it got everybody's support. Black, white, Hispanic, doesn't matter. Starbucks got everybody's support. And I thought it was just disgusting because I went to a white preparatory school, white collar, and just to see everybody walking out their Starbucks. Oh my gosh, Starbucks! It was just everybody was clowns to me. I didn't fit in any particular category yet. I fit everywhere. Yeah, I'm that prep that wore all black prep clothes, but still all black. Dress shoes, theater, choir, uh, A-string football. I was everywhere. When it came to Starbucks, no, I didn't even. I couldn't. I just couldn't. Everybody's hanging out at Starbucks during the high school. You have your off period, right? Or your off campus lunch, whatever. Oh, you're so cool. You're a senior, you're a junior, whatever. You can go off campus and have some Starbucks, which I think is a predatory act, if you ask me. Planting so many Starbucks around high schools, get them while they're young, hook them, right? And I just may be going off topic here, but that's how much I hate Starbucks. I, so if that was useful, if not, then go screw yourself, and I will send it back to Naruki.
All right, so that is it for tonight. Yeah, because I have to actually get some food cooked here, and I got to get some laundry dried out here.
You
Thank
know
you
you're
very.
not supposed to air out your laundry on the air.
Yeah, well, this is like literal actual laundry.
Joe's dirty
So
laundry on the air.
so for those of you who thank you very much for showing up here, V. I have to end this here fairly quickly. I don't feel like having any more comments. Yeah, 490. Yeah, apologies again. Right, it was. I'm going to one last thing before I go. I might just take a week off here at some point in the next month or so. I almost considered taking this one off. Unfortunately, I had already accumulated the topic, so it was like, yeah, I'm fucking busy, but I'll try to get this in before because I have to be at work in about an hour 20 minutes here, so I have to cook some food for tonight. But thank you everybody for tuning in, and we'll bring this show out with the Red Pill Transformation. Music composed by Roger Hansen, who hopefully will be on next week. Keep in mind, there is a possibility here, depending upon how much energy I've got over the next 4 days, that I might do an Naroki 5 live stream when I come home one morning. Just letting you know. All right, but this is it for today, folks. Thank you very much for tuning in. This is Red Pill Transmission, and then we're done.
I will do this.
Yo.
I will do this until I die.
I'm not the reassuring lie.
Roki.
Sorry, what did you say?
I was just saying, dude. There's so much going on, bro. So Tim Heidecker and the Onion have taken over Info Wars. Are we gonna talk about this shit?
Yeah, 492. 492. I have to end the show. Sorry, man.
Okay.
Let's get this show done.
I thought we were done.
492. All right, so let's get this done.
I will do this.
I will do this until I die.
I'm not the reassuring lie. There's nothing wrong.
There's nothing.
There is nothing wrong with your internet.
Do.
Not attempt to adjust your monitor. Remain seated. Remain attentive. This proceeding is now in session. Transmission.
We are controlling transmission. We will control the horizontal. We will control the vertical. The record will reflect
full compliance.
The red pill nation rises with measured breath, script in hand, ink like depth. Line by line, the weight increased. Words don't end, they multiply beneath. I will do this. I will do this until I die. I'm not the reassuring lie. We can change the focus. We can change the focus to a soft blur, or sharpen it to crystal clarity. But clarity cuts, and the blur conceals. The blur conceals.
Then neither stops what the text reveals.
We shaped the sound. We name the name. The voice obeys
until it will. For the next few hours.
For the next few hours. Sit
quietly. The broadcast will continue.
Unbroken.
The broadcast will continue. The broadcast. The broadcast will continue unbroken.
Stretch beyond the spine. Margins whisper out of line. Pause once, then twice, then more.
To something that is listening back.
There is nothing wrong. We are controlling transmission. We are controlling transmission. We are controlling.
I will do this. I will do this until I die.
I will do this. I will do this until I die. I will do this until I die.
I'm not the reassuring lie.
Do.
There's nothing new.
There is nothing wrong.
No.
We are controlling transmission. We are.
I will do this.
Hi, this is Naroki5. I am going to be doing this until I die or I find something better to do. So please help me achieve this personal and, I think, noble objective by contributing to my Patreon or Subscribestar. Link is down below. Every little bit helps. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for listening tonight. That's the end of the show.